All right, let's talk about something that feels like it's straight out of science fiction. Except it's not anymore. We're diving into the world of neurotechnology. And we're not just talking about understanding the brain, we're talking about upgrading it. We mean enhancing memory, boosting creativity, even linking minds directly. Let's jump right in.
And if you're thinking, okay, that's cool, but it's probably decades away, well, think again. Get this, researchers have already successfully connected the brains of 3 people, letting them play a game of Tetris together. 2 people sent information about rotating a block directly into the brain of a third person who couldn't even see the whole screen. This isn't telepathy, it's technology, and it's a jaw-dropping look at what is already possible today.
So that Tetris experiment is a pretty wild example of what neurotech can do. But how does it actually work? I mean, how do you get a thought from one person's head to an action in another's? It turns out it all pretty much boils down to 2 basic ideas: reading information from the brain and writing information to it.
Okay, so think of it this way. On one hand, you have technologies that record brain activity. This is like listening in on the brain's private conversation, observing all the little electrical signals that fire when we think or see or make a decision. Then, on the other hand, you have technologies that stimulate the brain. This is more like writing or talking back. You're actually sending electrical or magnetic pulses to influence how those neurons fire, nudging the brain to achieve a certain outcome.
Now, when it comes to listening, there's a huge catch. You have non-invasive options like an EEG, which is basically a wearable cap. It's super portable, but the picture you get of the brain's activity is kind of low resolution. At the other end, you have something like an fMRI, which gives you these beautiful high-def maps of the brain, but it's a massive machine you have to lie inside. To get the absolute clearest, most detailed signal, you have to get invasive, placing things like electrodes directly on or even in the brain. So that's the fundamental challenge. The clearer you want to hear the brain, the more invasive you have to get.
So, we've got this toolkit for reading from and writing to the brain. Now for the really fun part. What can we actually do with it? This is where it gets exciting, and we can look at how these tools are being used to literally hack the human mind today. At the center of all this is something called a brain-computer interface, or BCI. The best way to think of it is as a universal translator. It reads the specific patterns in your brain, like the neural signature for "I want to move my hand," and translates that intention into a command a computer or a machine can understand and execute. It's a direct bridge from your mind to the outside world.
And the things this enables are just astounding. With BCIs, people who are paralyzed can type just by thinking. They can control incredibly advanced prosthetic limbs with the exact same brain signals they would have used for their own arm. Scientists are even synthesizing speech directly from the brain. But it's not just about restoring function. BCIs are being used to help groups make more accurate decisions and even to build systems that can detect when a user is making a mistake and help them fix it in real time.
But maybe the most mind-bending application is actually enhancing our own memory. This quote here is from a study on a neuroprosthesis. You can just think of it as a brain implant. What they did was brilliant. They recorded the exact brain patterns that happened when a person successfully formed a memory. Then, if the brain was struggling to remember something later, the device would simply replay that successful pattern, basically giving the brain an electrical nudge in the right direction. The results were just incredible. Let's just sit with that number for a second. 37%. This isn't some tiny improvement you might get from a new study trick or a cup of coffee. This is a direct, technological upgrade to human memory. It's tangible proof that cognitive augmentation isn't just a sci-fi idea anymore. It's here.
And it's not just about memory, it's about creativity too. You've probably seen the 9-dot puzzle. It's a classic test of thinking outside the box, and most people just get stuck. In one experiment, 0% of the participants could solve it. But then, the researchers used a weak, non-invasive electrical current to stimulate the part of the brain that handles creative thought. What happened next? A staggering 40% of them solved the puzzle. The technology didn't give them the answer, it just unlocked a new way of thinking.
Now, these examples are amazing, but they're mostly happening inside research labs. So the big question is, what does the future actually look like? Well, based on how fast things are moving, experts have put together a pretty fascinating forecast for the next couple of decades. This roadmap shows a really clear path forward. You see how today, most of these really advanced applications are stuck in the lab. But by 2040, the prediction is that they'll have moved out into field use, being tested in the real world, or even routine use. Can you imagine a BCI for communication being as common in some jobs as a smartphone is today? That's the leap we're talking about, from experimental to everyday. This incredible pace of progress forces us, inevitably, to confront some really deep, really difficult ethical questions. As we gain this kind of access to the brain, we have to ask what the consequences are going to be, not just for us, but for everyone.
So let's start with the most obvious one, privacy. If your brain is wired up to a computer, could your thoughts be read without your permission? Right now, BCIs mostly act on intentional commands. But what happens when the tech gets good enough to just passively monitor your brain? Could a future employer know your genuine, unfiltered reaction in a meeting? This opens up the possibility of a kind of mind reading that we are just not equipped to handle.
Then you have the question of responsibility, because let's face it, these things won't be perfect. If someone is controlling, say, a huge construction drone with their mind and it makes a catastrophic error, who's to blame? Is it the user for having the wrong thought? Is it the doctor who calibrated the device? Or is it the company that developed the software? Our entire legal system is completely unprepared for these kinds of questions.
And you can see these concerns fall into a few major categories. Privacy and free will, that's the biggest slice of the pie for sure. Then you have basic safety concerns, especially with the more invasive tech. We've just touched on liability, and that leads right into the massive question of societal equity.
And this might be the toughest question of all. If these powerful cognitive enhancements are expensive and only available to the wealthy, are we running the risk of creating a new kind of inequality? A biological chasm between the cognitively enhanced and the unenhanced? This isn't just a technology problem, it's a fundamental issue for society.
And that brings us to the final thought here. The promise of this technology is amazing, to fix what's broken and to enhance what's healthy. But as we keep decoding and even rewriting the source code of our own minds, we're left with this ultimate question. Are we just becoming better versions of ourselves, or are we on a path to becoming something else entirely? That's a question technology can't answer for us.